definitely pays to shop earlier. A lot less people around. It was very crowded. Luckily I was able to get my port, even though it was slightly before 4 o'clock. The girl cut me some slack, so that was good. Coming up here I couldn't record anything because there's such a hurricane blowing in my face. Typical. I've been watching the US election all day, the actual Steve Bannon feed for the War Room, which is his internet site. It was very good actually, very good coverage, because he's got a stats guy called Rich Barris who's really spot on with looking into each electorate and each part of the electorate to find out how many votes could be turned around, because it's a tale of two elections today. By the way, I freely admit I got my prediction was wrong. I thought Trump would crush the election. He hasn't. It's a real dogfight. I think he'll still win, but it's going to be very messy, and a lot of it could happen in the courts. So, because the democratic system's under a bit of fire in America, a bit of strain, unfortunately, and so it's going to be could be fraught with a lot of lawyers involved, which is not good. They're already out in force now, apparently. They've got a team of a couple of hundred lawyers, apparently, the Democrats, and they're going to fight tooth and nail for every valid vote or invalid vote, whatever, to see if they can get some advantage. So it's getting very messy. But it does look as though Trump could well win, because he's got Ohio and Florida, two battleground states. He's won those, and he's picking up a few more too, and some that he didn't expect to win. So it could actually be more decisive than 2016, although he may not win as many electoral college votes. He's apparently, at one stage he had a million or so votes ahead of Biden nationally, which didn't happen in the Hillary Clinton election in 2016, so that's a big difference. But yeah, the coverage there was fantastic, as opposed to Fox. Fox had some coverage for a while, then it just cut it and then just showed some stats. And what really annoyed me was that they were cooking the books a bit. They were giving the Democrats states they hadn't really won decisively, and the last mistake they made was with Arizona, which looked a fair way behind. Admittedly, a lot to be made up, but the votes on the day are running 3-1 in favour of Trump on the election day. The votes before the election day were more heavily weighted towards the Democrats. So Rich Barris had the nous to actually inform the audience of all this, so you knew what to expect from the count. And obviously the people at Fox either were clueless, or more likely they're just part of the mainstream media manipulating the news to make it against Republicans, which is weird because they used to be a very pro-Republican station. Tucker Carlson's great, and a couple other commentators are fine, but overall it's definitely gone off, and the person doing that electoral coverage was definitely Democrat bias. So not good, not what you expect from Fox News. Hi everyone, it's Thursday, another pretty warm sunny day outside. I probably won't make a shopping expedition today, I'll just stay indoors. Yesterday I tried to record more material on my GoPro, but the wind was horrendous, especially when I was walking toward the supermarket yesterday. So that was just a waste of time. So I got some footage on the way back, but overall, yeah, these are not benign conditions to do walk and talk. So I'm back behind the camera, sitting in my spare bedroom, and looking at those wonderful palms. But of course the federal government, in their wisdom, well, it wasn't the federal government, it was the RBA, the Reserve Bank of Australia, decided to cut interest rates yet again, which is the most ridiculous decision I've ever heard of. It actually, I've got holding cash at the moment is a mug's game. You're getting nothing interest-wise. Even if you've got one of the better interest rates, it's absolutely useless. You'd be lucky to get a little over 1% probably. So there's no incentive to save. So you basically got to look at alternatives like gold or crypto or whatever. I'm looking at real estate to get rid of most of my cash, because it's just there's no point saving. There's absolutely no incentive. So I think the economic levers have just been totally mangled. You used to be able to use interest rates to stimulate or pull back the economy if it's overheating. Now there's no leverage whatsoever. It makes no difference what you do, and a 0.25%, I think, was the amount that they reduced the interest rates by. It's going to have absolutely no effect, except it's going to basically punish anyone who has cash on hand. And like I say, it's a mug's game. You've got to look at alternatives, and I am. I'm continually looking at alternatives. But the real estate one will take some time, especially if I'm looking at a local market here. There's just not much available. I'm not looking at just one beach, by the way. I'm looking at a number of beaches. Trinity would be nice, but there are plenty of other alternatives too. And I'm looking at them in the search mode. So I'm doing a wide search, but there just isn't much coming up. So that's the way it is. Look, this is an adjunct to the video yesterday, so it's about the US election. I spent hours watching the war room conducted by Steve Bannon, who used to be an advisor to Donald Trump. He had a team of experts on hand. He had a guy who was a lawyer who seemed to have a pretty good idea of what was going to happen. And lawyers are important to have at the moment, because the way things are going with this current election, it's looking really ugly. Biden thinks he's won it, but then again, Biden thinks it's 1945 too. I mean, the guy is not the most lucid guy on earth. He won't last long. Kamala Harris will take over, his running mate, his VP. And if they do get over the line, there's no guarantee they will get over the line, because there's still some life left in Donald Trump's campaign, in that they're going to get some recounts done. And seeing now that there is a majority of Conservatives in the Supreme Court, that should be okay. So the electoral system in America is pretty broken, and it's run on a state basis, and there's no consistency. Some states like Florida do a great job, a very professional job, and get the count in and declare the winner very quickly on election night. But then you'll have places like Wisconsin and Michigan who are not so great, and the other one is Georgia could be dodgy as well. There's a number of states there that Trump was doing really well at. The on-day votes for him were going about 3-1 in his favour, because there's been a split between Democrat voters were urged by their Democrat organisers to vote early, and Trump voters were advised to do the opposite and vote on the day to keep the integrity of their votes. And that's all fine and good, but now the counts they closed on Tuesday night American time, and straight after that there's suspicious dumping of votes. I think the most suspicious one, I think it was for Michigan. It might have been, it was either Wisconsin or Michigan, so don't quote me on that. But 100% of the extra votes they found went for Biden. Now that's suspicious under any circumstance. Why would you have 100% of votes? That's the sort of thing you get in a banana republic or in a communist country. It's not what happens in a functioning democracy, and it stinks to high heaven. And that's why this election is going to go to court. So don't expect there to be a result for some time. Given that Trump is still going to be president until January anyway, early January, that's my understanding of how it works in the US. There's plenty of buffer time in the system, so at least that's something. But I can't believe that America will have Biden as a president for 4 years. He certainly won't last 4 years. Everyone says he'd be lucky to last a year or two before Harris takes over, and she will be an utter disaster. She's a hard left. Kamala Harris is hard left, and she's the most progressive voter in the Democrats. So if you can just imagine what sort of a woke country America will end up being. If this does transpire, I would predict that the midterm elections in America are going to swing heavily against the Democrats. They didn't do that well in the House of Reps or Senate in this election. It looks like in the Senate, the Republicans may lose one seat in the Senate. They can afford to do that and still keep their majority. And they're making up seats in the House of Reps. They're actually doing well in that area. But the problem is, well, on the state levels with the voting systems, they seem to be independent, and some are more dodgy than others. And I'm afraid that it looks as though there's some real shenanigans going on. Vote rigging. Oh, the other thing I need to mention too, at the beginning of Bannon's War Room coverage, Jack Dorsey from Twitter cut off their Twitter feed right at the beginning of their broadcast. This is big tech interfering with the election process. Jack Dorsey seems to be the worst of the three of them. Certainly the YouTube seems to have been acting a lot better than Twitter. Twitter is just a disgrace. Facebook is pretty dodgy. They've got to be brought to bear. Apparently, it's the Democrats who actually wants to break them up and regulate them, because the Democrats are more into regulation, whereas the Republicans are more laissez-faire, and they've been pretty useless at confronting the big tech. They've had inquiries, but they've had people on these inquiries who don't understand big tech, apart from Ted Cruz, who has got a good handle on it and did give a proper grilling, especially to Dorsey, who looked like Osama bin Dorsey, the way he had his beard and what have you. He's a bit of an ashram boy. He's that sort of persuasion. He's rich boy looking for enlightenment through Eastern philosophy. You know, this is the sort of fruitcakes we're looking at in power in Silicon Valley. And is it any wonder we've got problems? I think they've got to redefine them as publishers, which means then they can be sued for the content. That'll bring them back to earth very quickly. There's a lot of things that can be done, but the Republicans, as usual, haven't used their power and flexed their muscles enough. And if now they lose the presidency, they'll probably retain the upper house, and they'll have a slim minority in the House of Reps. But at least if they got the Senate, control the Senate, that's something out of this debacle. It really is a debacle. I thought that Trump would actually crush the election. In a way, he did. He got a lot of Republicans out there to vote, but the difference is that a lot of Democrats also came out to vote who didn't the previous time. And that was the big difference in this election. So Democrats did come out in force. There are more Democrats voted for Biden than for Trump over the whole nation, because New York and California are so populous. They've put such a bent on the actual on the stats. So that's what's happened. Look, like I say, it's extremely ugly. I don't know where this is going to end up. I'm very, very disappointed. I feel numb, to be quite frank. But I was like an animal with the floodlights on me, watching the debacle take place on screen. It was a very good coverage by the War Room, and so I think they did a great job, and so that was actually by far the best coverage I could see. I didn't even bother going with broadcast TV, and the media in this country has been a disgrace. There also been a disgrace in the US, just basically running cover for Joe Biden and not covering the Hunter Biden corruption story. So it's been a really messy time. I'm drained. I'm really drained. I'm very depressed about it, because I think Trump has been a breath of fresh air. The anti-politician, that's what I love about him, and he actually says what he thinks, and that's so rare. Biden is just a joke. I saw his speech after the election, and he's just talking gibberish. He was actually, he kept smiling, just like Carmela did with her debate with Pence. Yeah, that's right, Pence, the second man, the VP. Yeah, she kept laughing, and Joe Biden kept breaking out in this smile after every sentence, and it just looked so phony and forced. And he's running to a script, had a teleprompter. He's going to be an absolute disaster for the press, because Trump, if nothing else, is entertaining, and Biden is going to be a snooze fest, if you see much of him at all, which I doubt, because everything he does will be choreographed with a teleprompter. There's going to be no spontaneity from Joe Biden, I guarantee you that. Anyway, look, that's probably enough. I can tell I'm a little traumatised, a little shaky, and I've had the double whammy. We had the state election not going the way I was hoping, but more importantly, this US election is a global event because it affects every nation, and it means one of the biggest problems, apart from the fact the economy will probably take a slide, is that the attitude towards China will soften, and that's a bad thing as well. Trump really knew how to deal with the Chinese. Biden will not be able to negotiate a damn thing. He will be incapable. And this is the guy with his finger on the trigger with nuclear weapons. My God, I think if this guy becomes president, I'm really worried. Anyway, that's it for today. As usual, please give me thumbs up, thumbs down. Comments are appreciated. And if you could subscribe, I'd also like that too. That'd be fantastic. So thank you for your time. I'm sorry I couldn't give more good news to people who are libertarians or lean slightly to the right, because I think, unfortunately, Donald Trump is in trouble, and it's a really sad situation. So that's it. Have a good day.